This is the last headland in Africa, the westernmost point of the whole continent, where the land runs out and the Atlantic takes over. 18 million people on a country a little smaller than South Dakota, and one word that English doesn't have. Before I tell you that word, here are 5 things waiting up ahead. A lake the color of strawberry milk and men who wade into it to go to work. A sport where one win pays 30 years of wages. A city that grew out of a dream and draws more visitors in 3 days than the Grand Canyon gets in a year. Water where 1.5 million European birds spend the winter. And one question every Senegalese abroad answers the exact same way. We start where the land ends. Stand at Pointe des Almadies at 6 in the evening. The wind comes off the Atlantic and leaves salt on your lips. Behind you, an entire continent. In front of you, nothing at all for 2,000 miles. This is the far western tip of Africa and the closest Africa ever gets to the Americas. 76,000 square miles, a bit smaller than South Dakota. 330 miles of coastline, about a New York to Boston drive and a half. And here's a detail that trips up every map you've ever seen. Another country is wedged straight into the middle of this one. The Gambia runs inland, like a flat blade along its river, and it nearly cuts Senegal in two. Driving from the capital down to the southern region takes 2 border crossings. 7 hours of road becomes 10. 2 seasons, that's all. No spring, no fall. And from December, the harmattan drags Sahara dust over everything until the noon sun turns into a red disk you can look straight at. Now remember that lake? I mentioned the pink one. It's real. Lac Retba, 40 minutes from the capital. The color comes from an algae that makes its own sunscreen to survive water this salty. And the salt content is high enough that you float without moving a muscle, like the Dead Sea, except the water is the color of strawberry candy. But the man standing chest deep in it isn't swimming, he's at work. And what he does out there, I'll come back to that later, properly. On the shore, behind him, white hills of salt, several feet tall, scooped up by hand from the lake bed. And far inland, in the furlough, no cities, no lights. The Milky Way comes out like it does in a Utah dark sky park. The salt harvester sets his shovel down on the edge of the boat, and the pink water closes over behind him. More than 20 ethnic groups live on a piece of land the size of South Dakota. The Wolof are about 40%. Then the Fula, the Sera, the Diola, the Mandinka. On a Friday, half the country puts on a boo-boo, a wide hand-embroidered robe, and a street in the capital looks like somebody spilled a box of paint. Now, that word I promised you. Teranga. Say it Teranga. English has no equivalent. The closest we get is hospitality, and that's a thin translation. What it actually means is you just walked in, and from now on, this place is also yours. And it's not a slogan. If you turn up at someone's house at mealtime, nobody asks whether you're hungry. Somebody shifts over, makes a gap at the shared bowl, and hands you a spoon. 3 more words explain almost everything about behavior here. Sutura, discretion, protecting somebody else's dignity. Cursa, knowing when to hold back. Jom, honor, self-respect. And then the cheerful counterweight, to all three KEL joking cousins. Certain family names and certain ethnic groups have a standing unlimited license to mock each other in public. It's a pressure valve built into the culture centuries ago, and it still works. Here's what nobody tells you about the women. When a husband sends money home from abroad, it passes through his wife. She decides what gets spent, what gets invested, who gets lent to. She isn't managing the household budget, she is the household economy. And the national dish of this entire country, the one UNESCO put on its heritage list, a woman invented it. A cook named Penda Mbai in St. Louis more than a century ago. One more thing. The keeper of a community's memory here isn't a library. It's a griot, a hereditary line of storytellers, musicians, and oral historians. Hand a griot your family name, and he'll recite 7 generations of your ancestors back to you. No notes. The griot stops mid-sentence. Somebody has just walked into the courtyard. 6 in the morning in Dakar. The call to prayer layers over the sound of surf, and under both of them, a metallic knocking the conductor of a car, rapide banging the side of his bus to signal the driver. Those buses are small painted, yellow and blue, hand-decorated bumper to roof, and such a symbol of this city that they show up on the official Youth Olympic poster. Up on the hill stands the African Renaissance Monument, 160 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty herself on her pedestal. It's the tallest statue in Africa, and it was designed by a Senegalese architect, Pierre Goudiaby. Along the water runs the Corniche, a clifftop road that fills every evening with runners and gives you the best sunset in the city for free. And this November, this city hosts the first Olympic event ever held on African soil. But the thing that empties these streets early isn't the Olympics. Remember the question I opened with Amga Jeka, do you have a husband? In Wolof Jabar is wife, Jeka is husband. Marriage here is a set of coordinates. It's how you get placed. It starts with the khadu, the asking. The groom brings his whole family across town to request her hand. And while that happens, her family studies not just him, but all of them. Then comes the sad, the gift presented before the elders. People here say, that's the moment respect turns into a relationship. Now my favorite part. After the vows, a griot walks the couple to their room and puts one bowl in their hands. Lac millet cooked with sweet yogurt. They're supposed to feed each other. But everybody in that hallway knows the real rule. Whoever smears the lac on the other's face first runs the household for the rest of their lives. The room stands and watches. Nobody plays fair. It's the funniest, most honest thing I've ever seen at a wedding. There's a stranger rule, and it comes earlier. Nobody congratulates a pregnant woman. No due date questions. No gifts. No baby shower. Saying it out loud early is believed to invite bad luck. So every good wish gets stored up and waits. Until the 7th day after the baby is born. That morning, the whole neighborhood comes, and the baby's head is shaved. An imam places a hand on it, prays and whispers the name into the child's right ear before anyone else on earth hears it. Only after a griot calls that name out loud with the family line is the child officially named. And the name is almost always somebody else's. A grandmother, a teacher, which means every child here grows up carrying another person inside their own name. Before we push this pirogue further from shore, tell me which country you're watching from and what time it is there. And if somebody named you after a person in your family, tell me who. One sabar hits down the block on a Wednesday afternoon, and within 3 streets, everybody knows whose house is celebrating. The sabar is played with one hand and one stick, and a good player isn't keeping time. He's talking. The phrases are called baks, and people who grew up here hear actual words in them. Then there's the tama, the little drum tucked under the arm. Squeeze the chords, the pitch bends, and it copies the tones of spoken wolof. Americans call these talking drums and assume it's a figure of speech. It isn't. All of that fed into mbalax, the national sound, born in Dakar in the early 70s, when bands stopped singing in French, switched to wolof, and shoved Saba rhythms into Latin pop. And the man who carried it out to the rest of the world is Youssou N'Dour. Say it, Youssou N'Dour. Here's the part that surprises people: you've already heard him. That soaring voice in the back half of Peter Gabriel's In Your Eyes, the boombox song, the one every American over 30 can hum. That's him. And in 2012, he became his own country's Minister of Culture and Tourism. Which fits. Senegal's first president, Léopold Sédar Senghor, was a working poet. A country that picked a poet first and a singer for the cabinet later. The drummer lifts his hand off the skin, and not one person in that courtyard sits down. Thibudien, say it Chebudjen, it means the rice of fish. Fish stuffed with herbs. Rice simmered in tomato sauce, built on fermented fish paste, called Djoudj, with cabbage, carrots, cassava. UNESCO added it to its intangible heritage list in 2021. On the street, a plate runs $5 to $15. Then, yassa, chicken or fish, marinated in lemon mustard and onions, cooked down until sweet. In Dakar, it comes stuffed into a baguette outside football stadiums. Mafé is a thick peanut stew where this country's most famous crop climbs onto the dinner table. In the 1960s, Senegal exported close to a quarter of the world's peanuts. An ataya, green tea poured 3 times. The first glass is bitter as death. The second, gentle as life. The third, sweet as love. The ritual can eat an hour, and that's the point. Nobody here drinks tea because they're thirsty. They drink it to buy time, sitting next to each other. 30,000 people go quiet at the same moment. Then one sabar. Then the sound of the first bare foot touching sand. This is laamb wrestling. It's the national sport, and it pulls bigger crowds here than football. It started in Sarah villages, something you did at the end of harvest and at the end of Ramadan. But nobody comes only for the fight. A wrestler enters the ring wearing dozens of gris-gris small leather amulets sewn shut, tied around his waist and upper arms. Someone pours milk over his shoulders. Then he circles the sand in a slow, heavy dance that's half sizing up his opponent, half prayer. That part can run longer than the match, and for a lot of the crowd, it matters more than the match. The rules are simple. A circle of sandbags. You lose if you touch the ground with all 4 limbs, land on your back, or get thrown out. In the popular version, punching is allowed. The only gear is a mouthguard. Let me put that in perspective. The best of them are called kings of the arena. A single major bout can pay $100,000, more than 30 years of wages for an ordinary worker here, which is why every dry season, thousands of village kids start training on sand. A young wrestler out in the Sine Saloum Islands says he needs money to reach the national arena. His friend doesn't even pause. Don't worry, the whole village will chip in. And this November beach wrestling is on the official program of the Dakar Youth Olympics. Their sport, their sand. 30,000 people is a lot. Wait until you see the number in the next one. Leave that raw behind, drive 90 miles east, and you're in a city with no bars, no clubs, not one lit cigarette. Tuba, say it Tuba. It was founded by Amadou Bamba, a Sufi poet exiled to Gabon in 1895, largely because too many people were following him. He came back and built this city on the exact spot he said he'd seen in a dream. The Great Mosque went up between 1927 and 1963, exactly as he'd instructed, its minaret visible dozens of miles across the plain. Once a year, on the 18th day of the month of Safar, comes the Grand Magal. More than 4 million pilgrims most years. In 2025, it passed 6 million. For a yardstick, the Grand Canyon gets roughly 4.7 million visitors across an entire year. Tuba beats that in 3 days. And here's the detail that stopped me cold. For 3 days, the whole city cooks for free. Nothing is sold. Doors stay open, and if you're hungry, you walk in. That's Teranga scaled up to a nation. So that's our second glass of tea and half the journey behind us. If 6 million people fed for free made you stop, type Teranga in the comments. Hit subscribe and let's drink the third glass together. Back to that lake. The man standing chest deep in it is harvesting salt. He'll be out there for hours in water, many times saltier than the ocean shea butter, over every inch of skin, so the brine doesn't eat into him. He scoops from the lake bed into a wooden pirogue. On the bank, women carry the loads up and build the white hills. That pirogue is the other half of the story. Long, open, hand-painted, no deck, a whole coastal economy built on one boat shape. The numbers are moving fast. 8.4% growth in 2025, inflation around 2% lower than ours. Offshore oil and gas started flowing in 2024. Wages are still modest. Unskilled work runs about $216 a month. Skilled work around $650. Here's a connection you didn't expect. Senegalese phosphate goes into fertilizer spread on American farmland, and Senegalese zircon is probably in the glaze on your kitchen tile. One last thing. On Friday at midday, the whole capital slows for 2 hours of prayer, and the afternoon belongs to attire, which is not a coffee break. Tea is where the business actually gets done. You hear it before you see anything, a low, thick, unbroken roar like a stadium, 2 neighborhoods away. That's 1.5 million birds. Djoudj, say it. Djoudj has been a UNESCO site since 1981, roughly the footprint of Washington, D.C. The star here is the great white pelican, a wingspan up to 10 feet 30 pounds, and a pouch under the bill holding more water than its own stomach. Watch how they eat. Great white pelicans hunt as a unit. The flock swims into a crescent, beats its wings to herd fish into the middle, and every bird plunges at once. They aren't competing. They're surrounding something. And here's why it matters far beyond Senegal. Djoudj is the first major stop south of the Sahara on the East Atlantic Flyway. A duck leaving the Netherlands in autumn touches down on open water for the first time here. This small country is quietly holding winter for the birds of an entire continent. Under the surface, there's another one. The West African manatee, 13 feet long, close to 1,000 pounds. River folklore calls it the mermaid, and in a lot of villages, it's simply forbidden to hunt, a conservation law that existed long before conservation law did. Further south, in the Sine Saloum Delta, a pirogue slides through the Bolongs at dawn, and dolphins ride the bow wave. Then, the boatman cuts the engine. Nobody says anything after that. Six in the morning, in Dakar, smells like Café Tuba, from a wheeled thermos coffee, roasted with Leamb pepper, warm and faintly spicy. The corniche is already full of runners. By 8 at night, the debiteries light up and lamb smoke rolls across the sidewalk until 2 in the morning. Somewhere a wedding has pitched a tent in the middle of the road and the whole street is invited. People keep coming for real reasons. This is the financial and logistics hub of West Africa, and 8 of the country's 22 hospitals sit in this one city. Now go inland. In a village, the day starts before the sun. Women pound millet in wooden mortars, and that thudding is the alarm clock for the whole neighborhood. Houses are cases gathered around a shared courtyard, and the well is the actual town square. And here's the finding nobody expected. A study comparing the capital with the remote furlough region came back with life satisfaction higher out in the furlough. Even the researchers were surprised. This isn't modern beating backward. It's 2 versions of the same present, each winning at its own thing. On the ferry out of Dakar, an American woman in her 50s stands at the rail, holding a paper folded into quarters. 20 minutes across the water is Gorée, a UNESCO site with no cars at all. Yellow walls, bougainvillea, and the House of Slaves with a doorway that opens onto nothing but Atlantic. But the island carries a different job now. It's where descendants of Africans from all over the world come back. And many of them hold a naming ceremony right here in the full Wolof rite, receiving an African name at 40, at 50. The exact ritual from earlier, except the baby is grown. Up north sits Saint Louis, another UNESCO site, and once the capital of all French West Africa. Red tile roofs, wrought iron balconies, and every May, the oldest jazz festival on the continent. People were taken away from that island. So why do they keep coming back? At Saint Louis, the ocean is eating the shore. The Langue de Barbarie is a thin sandbar getting thinner, and some coastal neighborhoods have had to move inland. So watch what they did. Instead of pouring concrete, they built Ganiville fencing out of Taifa, the invasive reed, choking the river, the plant everybody wanted gone. The fences catch blowing sand. The sand rebuilds the dune. The dune breaks the waves. They planted casuarina as a second belt. After year 1, the results came back positive. Then they went further. The Saint Louis Departmental Council launched a mangrove restoration project, now held up as a regional model, and the people gaining most from it are the women's cooperatives farming oysters in those same routes. And to the north, Senegal is the western starting point of the Great Green Wall, the belt of trees meant to run clear across Africa. Sit with that for a second. A country loses ground to the sea, and its answer is to plant more of it back using the one weed nobody wanted. So the sea is pushing in the desert, is pushing down, and more than a quarter of people under 35 don't have steady work. So why does almost everyone who leaves return? Start with that shared courtyard. It isn't just architecture. Losing your job here doesn't mean losing your roof and your dinner. There's always a courtyard with room in it, and a bowl nobody has to invite you to. Then look at the money. About 700,000 Senegalese live abroad, under 4% of the population. They send home $3.6 billion a year, roughly a tenth of the national economy. Drive up the Senegal River Valley, and you can see it standing there. Wide concrete compounds, painted mosques, schools, clinics, almost all of it funded by hometown associations, pooling money in Paris and Dakar. They build the house years before they move back into it. Karunga Kamara spent 7 years in Milan, then went home to Thiers and started over. And Aliyah Mahdi went the other direction. She and her husband RJ left the United States for Senegal, then founded the Made in Africa project to help others do the same. Asked why this country, her answer starts with exactly one word: Teranga. Then she adds the rest. It's peaceful. It's straightforward for a foreigner to rent, buy land, start something, and it's a way out of the American rat race. That's also why tens of thousands of people from neighboring countries settle here and stay. A country other people pick as home. That's the hardest credential in the world to fake. Before we say goodbye, the practical part. Best window November through February. Dry 68 to 86 degrees bird numbers at Djoudj peak in January wrestling season running. March to May is still dry and quieter with the St. Louis Jazz Festival in May. June through October is the rainy season, green cheapest of the year, and Nyokolo Koba Park closes. One more from October 31st to November 13th this year, the city hosts the Youth Olympics book, Months Ahead or Don't Bother. Money. Flights from the US run around $1,000 round trip. Budget travel is $50 to $80 a day, mid-range $100 to $170, comfortable $220, and up. A morning plate of akara fritters costs under 60 cents. Taxis are roughly $1, but agree the price before you get in, always. The currency is the CFA franc pegged to the euro, and ATMs are scarce outside Dakar, so pull cash first. Paperwork is easy. American, Canadian, and EU passports get 90 days with no visa. You'll land at Blaise Diagne Airport, 28 miles outside the capital. 4 quick rules. Greet before you ask. Leading with a price question is rude. Ask about the family first. In Tuba modest dress, no smoking, no alcohol. At a shared bowl, eat only what's in front of you, right hand only. And if you're offered attire, stay for all 3 glasses, leaving after the first cuts the conversation in half. And then one afternoon, you'll notice you've stopped counting the days. Senegal is a headland where the land runs out. It's a lake the color of strawberry candy, with white hills of salt on the shore. It's 30,000 people holding their breath for one barefoot touching sand. It's a bowl of millet and 2 people laughing because they both lost. But if you ask me the thing I can't forget about this place, it isn't the pink lake and it isn't the arena. It's a hand sliding the bowl toward you before anybody thought to ask your name. That's the thing English has no word for. They have one here. Teranga. Thank you for coming with me all the way to the last headland of a continent. Next time we turn north into Mauritania, where a freight train more than 2 miles long crosses the desert, and people climb onto the open cars to ride it for free. Subscribe and I'll save you a spot on that one. Until next time, Babenignon. Say it, Babenignon. Babenignon from Senegal.